raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
We're getting the dirt bags off these trees.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Thunder breaks, the ground is shaking from the weight. Voices crying in the night, but freedom burns a steady light. We hold the line, we won't let go. Through every trial, the truth will show. This is your daily dose. Open your eyes, see through the smoke, see through the lights. Rise from the silence, hear freedom's call. One voice, one people, united we stand tall.
Hearts awaken, chains undone. A new day breaks, the dawn has come. Through every battle, through the flame, our faith in God remains the same. The storm may rage, the night may fall, but hope will answer stronger than all.
This is your daily dose. Courage and fire, lifting the weak, lifting us higher. Not by the sword, but the truth we recall. Where we go on. We've seen the darkness try to reign. We've felt the sorrow, we've known the pain. But every trial has forged the steel. In God we trust, His plan is real.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. I hope everybody is doing well out there and having a great Tuesday evening. And Tuesday, right after the show, directly after the show, we are heading into DEF CON 0, myself and Alpha on Badlands Media. For those in the Rumble, I will throw you guys over there through a raid. But yeah, that is right after the show. So we got basically an hour and 10 minutes to go through the news of the day and what's happening. See how my mic just keeps on moving through, right? Like, oh, I gotta come over here. Go through the news of the day and what's going on in the world, and that shouldn't be hard for us. A few different things that I do want to do, though. I gotta put some news in place of where it needs to go. That's actually exactly where it went. There's two different stories that I just got out there that I wanted to get into the feed for tonight. And I think that we are golden. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Now we're golden. Okay. So a few different things going on today. And, I look at the world sometimes in the context of the cube boards, right? And today there's two posts that I think are very, very intriguing. And so today's show is Future Proves the Past. And if people don't know what that means, it means that what was laid out in the past, the research and the work done in the past, what was uncovered in the past is now coming up in the future. It is now being shown to the world through validation, right? And man, what an interesting time to be alive with everything that is going on right now. I do have to go over here, and because one thing that I have not done, and I apologize to everybody on Pilled and D Live for doing this, is we do have like these buckets that form. So I'm going to release the scratching on Pilled, and so the various different people that are watching on Pilled can go ahead and get that. And then on D Live, I'm going to open that chest up for those people out there. That's typically done on Thursday. I don't think we've done it in quite a few weeks. But I'm going to go ahead and release the chest here. Oh, I got to log in the D Live. No, we need to do it this way. Someone reminded me about it right before the show, and I'm like, you know what? That I should do that. I probably should do that. Now, what is happening in the world? Why is it an interesting time to be alive? Well, let's take a look at it. Last night's show was the Trump reset. This comes off of Trump's post from this weekend, the most powerful reset in the world. And then Scott Bessent today starts talking about the Bretton Woods Agreement. And if you don't understand, the Bretton Woods Agreement was the last reset. And listen to what Scott Bessent says right here. Well, I got to pull it up for you so you can see it. There you go. Listen to this.
Banks were invented around Bretton Woods, which was post World War II. Europe was, and Asia was a unique time in America, and it led to incredible prosperity across the world. So why can't we do that again? And why can't we focus on growth? Like, what are the tools? What is hindering growth of these economies?
Oh my goodness. So yes, what he's talking about is the Bretton Woods Agreement back after the end of World War II, which basically formed what we know of today as the liberal rules-based international order. Come on. The liberal rules-based international order. And to kind of understand the complexity of what that was and how it operated, and I can go over some of this, is that after World War II, the United States was in a very, very powerful position, strength-wise, militarily, and economically. Coming out of the Great Depression, having the military-industrial complex ramping up during the time of World War II, helping to defeat the Nazis, defeating the Japanese, and they emerged as a world power. The remnants of the British Empire, or the British imperialist, or if you want to just look at the British aristocracy and the London bankers, saw this as a point to go in and try to control the United States of America from this point forth through diplomacy, or the idea of diplomacy. And through the Bretton Woods Agreement, what ended up happening is a reframing of how the international order will operate. And you get the emergence out of this is you get various different institutions, what we call think tanks and NGOs, that start to formulate and become kind of the intermediary between various different governments and ideas that then go on and produce laws, regulations, and policies. You start seeing that this intermediary of NGOs and think tanks begins implementing their people within large financial institutions, within global institutions through the United Nations, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. And then from there, they begin putting those directly inside various different political echelons throughout the world, whether it's Canada and throughout Europe, the United States. And they utilize this as a mechanism to start driving the world towards one ideology, and that is a one world government, a borderless a borderless government of where, the world people could be free. But if you take it from the idea of Klaus Schwab back in 2014 in his book, The Great Reset, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, it's where people will own nothing and be happy. And I don't think that could ever be a world in which I would want to live in. But what he was trying to say is that the rights and the responsibilities of everyday citizenships would be given up for the safety and security and usability of the world that is owned around you, basically a new feudalistic structure. And this is what the ideology was actually pushing towards and driving for. And it dealt primarily with controlling the global supply chain and the accessibility of the resources. And this is where a lot of the power derived from through the rules-based international order. So every month in 1954, when they started the Bilderberg Group meetings, this is what they were talking about, was reallocations of assets and resources and how to get more resources to build and consolidate their countries and move towards their agendas through their various different ideologies. And what Scott Bessent is saying here is that, hey, we've done it once before, that people have aligned and brought about a rules-based international order for a purpose and for an ideology, and that we can do this again, but we can do it right. And he says that we have to go through and find out what went wrong. And that's the interesting part, because what went wrong is that this was massively corrupted. This was corrupted to the point where you had various different factions of power and control, what I like to call the multi-headed hydra, okay? And if you have not heard the concept of the multi-headed hydra before, it's really easy to understand. Think of a hydra, right? The mythological creature with multiple different necks and heads, and that each head is a different faction of power with its own ideology and its own agenda. And that for the last 100 years, one head of that hydra has kind of consolidated a lot of the power of the world through money and banking and finance, through supply chain, through resource reallocation and controllability of accessibility of the resources, and then through infiltration within political power dynasties, and consolidated that power around themselves. And what happened is the other heads began to flock and join in with it because they didn't want to be left out of the power structure. Well, when Donald Trump arose, think about this as a singular head that's over here on the right-hand side, maybe a few other heads that align with it. He began taking on that behemoth. He began to dismantle a lot of what they were doing, and that came about through undermining their sectors of power and control. Because the one problem with a lot of what this one invisible faction we call the old guard, how they operated was through criminality, through multinational criminal organizations. They operated in the darkness. They didn't necessarily do things that were on the surface level. And so it becomes really, really easy to begin dismantling them when you start attacking their mid-level infrastructure of the criminal-based structures that operate in the world: human trafficking, child trafficking, money laundering, the rigging of elections, and these types of things. And right now we are at a point in the world where President Trump, just in 1 year, has absolutely decimated their infrastructure and peeled away at their layers of power and control. And the most important part of that is what we are seeing right now in Iran and what we saw in Venezuela. And remember, one of the biggest parts of all of this is the idea of resource control. Now, why do resources matter? Resources matter because when we start talking about money and what money actually is, money is completely worthless. Money has no value except for the value that you accept that it has. And governments come out and they back a definitive perspective of what that value is. In the United States of America, it is the good faith and will of the American people. But prior to Bretton Woods, it was gold and silver, backed by gold and silver through Article 2, Section, or Article 1, Section 3, I believe, right? So when we look at money, money has deviated away from its original purpose. Now, Bretton Woods Agreement came out there and said that we'll base it on gold. That changed when Nixon left the Bretton Woods Agreement in 71. And then we had the birth of the petrodollar in 72. And so right now, the U.S. dollar is kind of in this quasi form of basement on who uses it. And that's what we mean by the petrodollar. The petrodollar isn't something special or it doesn't have a representation. It just means that countries around the world, corporations around the world, keep U.S. dollars in their reserve so that they can buy oil and gas, because that is the primary method of transaction of oil and gas in the world. That's what is meant by the petrodollar. Well, here's the thing. In order to do that, you have to spend dollars. You have to get dollars, and Congress has to authorize that. And that comes about through the Federal Reserve System, which is nothing more than a debt-based system. And that means that Congress has to go out there and they have to form a bill with a budget, and they have to ask the Federal Reserve for money. The Federal Reserve prints up the money by sending a request over to the Treasury, and they tack on interest onto that. So each debt that is incurred for every dollar that is spent, it takes, I think, $1.10 to pay back, or $1.03 to pay back. In other words, it's a continuous loop or cycle of debt that you'll never get out of. And this is where what's happening right now, and I think what Scott Bessent is indicating, is that this is where it begins to transition. This is where we start to look at how the world operates in a much different fashion. So I'm not going to go into how they all controlled this kind of this idea of this infrastructure. To give you the short version, you have central banks which determine the rates around the world. They lend to large financial institutions. Large financial institutions become the intermediaries between international global organizations and corporations. Corporations go out there and they buy the supply chain, oil, gas, wheat, and meat, and all of these other things. The thing is nobody wants to pay upfront cash for services not, or for products not delivered. So they take out interim capital, short-term interim capital, and they borrow that from the large financial institutions. And then what happens is they pay it back slowly over time with a short interim loan. Well, it's through that mechanism of control that this rules-based international order has ruled and dominated and controlled the supply chains for the longest time. Great example is what happened in Iran. You have Mossadegh that was overthrown by MI6, and then you have the Shah that is implemented. The Shah comes out, and they rule over Iran through British imperial control. The British ensure that they have the best end of the deal. Just think about it as an 80-20, 80% of the profitability for the British, 20% of the profitability for the Shah. The Shah comes out and says, hey, I'm not getting a good deal. I don't want to do this anymore. They overthrow the Shah, and then they implement the Khomeini. Khomeini, the Ayatollah, comes back in, and he was living in France in exile, took a plane out of England back to Iran, and he comes in and he gives the British back a deal, but the deal is under Western sanctions, and there's a methodology of control, and that was through the Straits of Hormuz. So what you find is that in the context of power projection, the control of resources can be adhered to not only through the infrastructure that pulls them out of the ground and moves it and processes it and manufactures it, but also the accessibility of the energy corridor, like the Straits of Hormuz. And this is why you have what's known as the Iranian terror premium. Anytime that the Ayatollah would come out and threaten to put arrows in the sides of ships through the Straits of Hormuz, You would have Lloyd's of London increase insurance premiums, which then drive up oil and gas prices, of which the London banks already had their derivatives and financial institutions buying gas futures and reselling them the next day, making an immense profit. And they would just run this over and over and over again over the last 47 years, which has accumulated approximately $33 trillion worth of profitability for them through the Iranian terror premium. Now, that is a certain control over the supply chain that the Europeans have had for a very long time. That also goes into full effect of the control over Cuba through China and the Panama Canal by China and Venezuela by China and European nations. Now we're seeing those areas be liberated by Donald Trump. Not necessarily controlled, liberated. And I think that's really important. Venezuela is a great example of liberation. As you remove the one piece of the puzzle that had all the mechanisms of control, you set up Delcy Rodriguez and basically say she's the one that gave us all this information through your intel agencies, which means that she has no choice now but to abide by your request and work with you. And now you have all of these empty tankers flowing in through the Gulf of America to fill up on oil and gas, a lot of it American, a lot of it Venezuelan, through the Gulf coastal states. And one of the places they have to pass by is Cuba. Now think about that. If the enemy controlled Cuba, now they can form various levels of embargo in those areas. So this is why Cuba becomes a geographically important area in the trade of the Gulf of America. So what we're looking at right now is that the old guard is being rendered powerless and obsolete. They have no military. They have a declining economy. They have mass illegal immigration into their countries. And they've been warned by President Trump multiple different times, and they didn't listen. And see, everything would have went fine and dandy if the rules-based international order, if the New World Order got their way and they move forth with their great reset. But instead, what you're getting is you're getting a Trump reset. And a Trump reset is a whole new idea of thinking how the world operates. It comes about through a multipolar framework. The multipolar framework understands that if you control the resources or reallocate the resources through your country, or if you support everybody within your hemisphere or over your hemisphere of influence with various different levels of protection and allow them to operate freely, and then you open up the tradeways of trade, the freeways of trade, the routes of accessibility, energy corridors, open them freely and don't allow external factors to influence them and manipulate them, then you can begin to build true free trade. And this, by the way, benefits Iran. This benefits Venezuela. This benefits these countries because they start seeing more profitability come in from the sales of their own resources and their assets. So this was kind of interesting. I saw this. Camille Dmitriev put this out a while back. This was April 4th. And he says, the last Hormuz shipments will reach the EU in 1 week on April 11th, but this would be a leisurely Saturday, so not much monitoring by EU bureaucrats. Fasten your seatbelts as the real monitoring in the EU will start Monday the 13th. Ursula and Kaja Day will empty. And our good buddy over here, Mario, comes out and says, Putin's top economic advisor called this to the exact day. On April 4th, Camille Dmitriev predicted that the EU's last Hormuz shipments would arrive April 11th. Bureaucrats would start panicking on April 13th, and reserves would run dry by April 20th. It's April 14th. He's batting 1,000 so far. The EU's response is to the blockade is straight and emptying fuel reserves. Ursula von der Leyen telling Europeans the cheapest energy is the energy you don't use. Dmitriev's argument is simple. Europe didn't get here because of the Iran war. It got here because it sanctioned Russian energy after 2022 and never replaced it. The Strait closing just pulled the trigger on the gun loaded, the Europe gun loaded itself. So number one is Europe is heading into a massive energy crisis. They did actually, so for the correction of Mario there, after 2022, and they stopped a lot of the flow of the Russian energy into Europe, what they did is they started buying Iranian and Venezuelan oil under sanctions, and so they're buying it very much more cheaper on the global markets. And Donald Trump has shut that off over the last year. I see. Now you get to see that Trump's move and Russia's move begin to coordinate the dismantling of this system. China is another country that is massively affected by this. Last night, we talked about how China has spent over $269 billion on investments and construction contracts across the Middle East since 2005. This is primarily associated with their Belt and Roads Initiative. Saudi Arabia is one of the largest recipients, by about $82 billion of that. UAE is at $48 billion, and Iraq is at $40 billion. A lot of the Iraqi infrastructure that was built out was oil and gas infrastructure that is owned by China. I think about 6 to 7% of the oil and gas infrastructure is owned by China in Iraq. Furthermore, China investments in construction contracts in Iran have reached over $25 billion. Now, that includes various different infrastructures in energy. So, one of the key points there, though, is that Iran bombed a lot of the Iraqi infrastructure, and what was destroyed in there was Chinese and European gas and oil infrastructure, to the point where it was force majeure in context that they could not complete the obligation of their contracts. So a lot of that infrastructure that they built out and the investments that they made in there has been dismantled, which I find pretty interesting. So when we start to look at what Donald Trump is doing, it is he's taken two immense powerful forces in the world, and he's putting them in a very, very probable game theory level predicament. Number one is you have the European nations, the old guard, the UK. Number two, you have China. He's saying, hey, as you can clearly see, we are working with Russia. And I think that this is clear as day right now with the things that we've laid out over the course of the last few weeks. This is the two largest energy empires in the world that are coordinating together. And then you have two countries, one country that controlled a lot of the accessibility and a lot of the infrastructure of energy that's now been dismantled. That's the UK. And then China, who uses a lot of that energy and was building out massive infrastructure and through the Belt and Roads Initiative, had deals in place to ensure that. Those deals are now dismantled, and this produces an energy crisis for these two sides. And the question is what is their next move? What will they do next? They are being given an option, because in game theory, you eliminate the strengths of your enemies and to follow a path that you have various different probabilistic outcomes, of which you know how both of those outcomes operate, and you have the counter actions to place on them if they start to deviate away. So the question now becomes is what will Europe do and what will China do? Well, Donald Trump, I love it. I love it. This was today. Donald Trump posted this, confirming a lot of what we're saying right here and what we've been talking about. I mean, it's not a coincidence that Scott Bassett is talking about a financial reset globally, and we can do this again, and we can build a new world, and we can progress forth as a multipolar world. On the same day, Trump is posting this. Europe is desperate for energy, and yet the United Kingdom refuses to open the North Sea oil, one of the greatest fields in the world. Tragic. Aberdeen should be booming. Norway sells its North Sea oil to the UK at double the price. They are making a fortune. UK, which is better situated on the North Sea for purposes of energy than Norway, should drill, baby, drill. It is absolutely crazy that they don't. And no more windmills. Now, that's an interesting post by Donald Trump, because we're just saying, what should the UK do and what should China do? And Donald Trump just gave Europe an option. He's saying, hey, you guys have the North Sea oil field. Why are you not drilling out there, pulling that oil out there? Well, my guess for the North Field oil well is that countries like the United Kingdom are waiting for the global oil supply to diminish massively before they tap into that, because then they become the global leader of power, because they become a superpower because they control the accessibility to a very, very rare resource. Now, I'm a firm believer that oil is a renewable resource, but if you think about an energy crisis that would be manufactured, this would be the mechanism that they could utilize. So Trump is basically saying, hey, unleash your oil that you have, tap it, drill, baby, drill. Well, why is that important? It's important to when you understand how the United States dollar is going to be treated over the course of the next 5 years and what's going to happen with it through the sovereign wealth fund, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, how various different investments that are flowing into the United States of America are going to build the infrastructure for artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and derive all new different market dynamics that we've never seen before. Well, one of the things that is going to happen here is there's going to have to be parts of these companies when automation, artificial intelligence begin to displace jobs that are paid directly into as dividends to the sovereign wealth fund. Very similar to how the United States of America owns 10% of Intel, and they just made $40 billion last quarter from Intel that flowed directly into the sovereign wealth fund. And when you start taking the $124 trillion worth of U.S. assets of energy and minerals and metals that are under the ground, and you start putting that in the sovereign wealth fund, and each lease that you put out there, you take the profitability for that and you divvy that up into a budgetary constraint that Congress gets this to run the government and the American people get back this, and you put that into a dividend structure. And then you add in there two appreciating assets, gold and cryptocurrencies. And then you begin to issue bonds based upon those two appreciating assets to borrow money from a non-Federal Reserve linked treasury, like, let's say, stablecoin companies, Tether, USDT. Now what happens is that, yeah, you're initiating a debt bond for, let's say, $1 billion at 3.2% interest or 0.2% interest over 50 years that appreciates when the price of gold reaches X amount. And now you have an appreciating asset, which that bond is based upon. So it basically pays itself back. So that interest that is going to be paid on that bond over the next 50 years is actually paying it back by the value of that asset increasing and appreciating over that 50 years. In other words, debt eliminates itself as you borrow. And what I think that Trump is doing is he's trying to drive the global energy price down to below anything that we've ever seen on this planet. But in order to do that, we know that, so you have to think in the aspects of supply and demand. Right now, we have an inclining demand, okay? The demand for energy is increasing almost exponentially due to data centers and artificial intelligence. But the supply is staying stagnant. Now, there is two countries that had supply that were under sanctions. And even if the sanctions were reduced, they would have kept their primary fillers of contracts, China and Europe. This is the interruption that Donald Trump just did in Venezuela and Iran with Europe and China. He's basically taken their energy off the table. He did this on purpose. So next thing you know is what he wants to do is we need to increase the global energy supply to meet the demand. That keeps price stable or draws the price down. That also the same thing for nuclear energy is you need more uranium. Hence why Donald Trump wants to go into Iran and grab their uranium and pull it out and use it in power plants. So what Trump is trying to do is get these older countries that are holding on to these massive oil fields to open them up, begin drilling to keep global energy price and cost down or to a medium or even decreasing while the demand begins to skyrocket. But also at the same time, he's controlling the accessibility and relinquishing the control over the accessibility from various different old world nations that have controlled it for a very, very long time. On the sense of China, China was positioning themselves that basically have a monopoly on the global supply chain markets. That's what the Belt and Roads Initiative was basically doing. It went out there and developed infrastructure, roads, and manufacturing and processing within third world countries that the United States and other Western nations had basically decimated over the last 40 years. And when they did that, they made deals for the various different resources in these countries. And so China was developing the Belt and Roads Initiative to produce a monopoly over all of these critical metals and minerals and energy throughout the world for this very, very point that when this technological revolution begins to happen, that they are safe and secure and that nobody can compete with them because the United States would have been on the decline, Europe would have been on the decline, and China would have been on the rise. And this brings rise to your new world order and how that was supposed to be imposed. Now, 2 deltas for today on the boards. First one, who knows what this means, but it sounds good to me. My next piece is called Nothing Can Stop What's Coming. And I think we're there. We're there right now. We are at that point of nothing can stop what's coming. I'm going to get into this here in a second. The other one is expand your thinking, the date versus actual. Iran next. Trusted plan, April showers in kill brackets. Showers are the prerequisite before the storm. And so now we have to start to see something here. I've said for the longest time that, and this came about, is there was two paths that could happen. We had the firestorm on one side, and then we had prosperity on the other. And I said that once the firestorm begins to happen, shit begins to collapse and crumble, this is when you act, when your enemy is the most vulnerable. And I think that this is exactly where we are at right now, but it's in a different context, which is beautiful. And I'm happy that we're in the situation that we are in right now globally. But this is what you need to start seeing. Is I said that all of these things are intercorrelated. You remember 3 movies playing at the same time? Panic in DC, Guardians of the Pedophiles, FISAgate. And I said that all of this is going to come together. It's all going to start happening and unraveling at the same time because it's all intercorrelated. That's where we are right now. You're about to see how interconnected all of this actually is. That the globalists that were controlling the global supply chains, the accessibility, the global resources, were also the same ones controlling the international criminal organizations, human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking. They were the ones instigating wars, overthrowing countries. They were the ones stealing votes. They were the ones out there undermining Donald Trump, getting him impeached 3 different times, going out there and stealing the 2020 election, creating bioweapons to ensure that they could do that. It is all interrelated, and we're about to see how this unravels. Now, interesting development here is you guys remember Judge Boasberg. He's been incremental for the Democrats in trying to stop Donald Trump multiple different times. In a 2-1 vote, the D.C. Circuit panel has issued an extraordinary writ of mandamus ordering Judge Boasberg to terminate his criminal contempt probe in the Trump administration transfer to Love Trinidad members to El Salvador. So that's huge. And that's where we begin to see that things are starting to turn around and look different. That we go through these little points of chaos, and we're like, oh my God, what is going on? And then all of a sudden things start to make more sense. We start to see why those things were happening. And I was asked this question this last weekend. Why doesn't President Trump just come out and tell us? Why aren't they telling us why this is all happening? Because, see, that takes away from it. You know, the news tells you what's going on. Politicians tell you what's going on. Donald Trump wants you to see and figure it out for yourself. He wants you to say, why are we in Venezuela? Why are we over in Iran? I need to search out there and find out what's really going on in the world. And that's when you come upon shows like this. That's when you go out there and you start discovering what's really happening in the world. Is that Americans, people around the world, need to learn to think again for themselves and do the proper investigative research to discover what's really happening in the world, because that is the only way that you can truly become informed. We're going to make a quick transition. Yeah, a transition. I'm sorry. No, we're not going to make a quick transition. Guys, if you're first time here, please do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that follow button. And ensure that you are following the channel on wherever you are watching it. We're going to do a quick ad break, just 35 seconds, 40 seconds, and then we're going to jump into the next line of what's actually happening, the panic in DC side. They can cancel your accounts, freeze your cards, decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you can control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middleman, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line that can shut off. It's your wallet permanently. Yours to protect your future, yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now and step away from big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. All right. See, that was painless. It was easy peasy, man. Easy peasy. All right. And the other side of that is redpills.tv, guys. You see all the links scrolling down below. Redpills.tv, we have various different sponsors page. So if you go to the redpills.tv website, redpills.tv, you come here. And if you go here, there's multiple ways to follow us right there. I was just talking about make sure you're following us and then support us. You go up here and you just click that sponsors. You're going to find Pet Club right there, and we all know Pet Club. They're amazing. Gabe with GOODBRU right there, and then Lifewave with X39. You can click on that and get your information on Lifewave, and you can get started directly with Lifewave and the X39 patches. I want to hear the testimonials of people that are using it. I know a lot of people are waiting for them. Yeah, they are freaking awesome. And GOODBRU, obviously, and then you have Pet Club, which you can go to that website right there with Pet Club and learn all about their products, not just from Pet Club, but for human products as well. And then if you go to the next tab over, there's support, and there's multiple different ways to support us right here. Give, Send, Go campaign is the best way to do that, and that is linked up as well. And so I hope that you guys visit on over there and help support the Red Pill Project and alternative media. And I see a lot of the rants coming in. I'll try to get to those here in a few minutes. But let's jump into the next level of conversation because we only have 15, 25, like 30 minutes. My beard's starting to get thick. This is like the third time I've grown it out. And man, this thing is getting thick. It's crazy. I love how they grow in denser and denser every time. So, panic in D.C. Let's listen to a clip when Eric Swalwell was trying to grill FBI Director Kash Patel.
I will work on the audio-visual capabilities.
I'm going to borrow your terminology and call bullshit on your entire career in Congress.
Reclaiming my time,
it has been a disgrace to the American people.
I'm reclaiming my time.
You can reclaim your time all you want.
Mr. Chairman, you're going to allow a witness to speak this way? Mr. Chairman, would you give
recuse yourself?
The gentleman has no time. Mr. Chairman, would you admonish the witness not to insult members?
The gentleman has no time.
Mr. Chairman, just
committee will remember.
Quick point of order. Could the gentleman be extended an additional 20 seconds to complete his thoughts since the witness decided to interrupt him continuously?
And the witness will be able to respond if he wants. We'll make sure he has time to do that.
My question is, will you, Director, recuse yourself, yes or no, from investigating or making decisions about the 60 individuals, including myself, that you identified as government gangsters? Yes or no?
Time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may respond if he would like.
And the answer was no, as I heard.
Correct. Okay. The gentleman from Wisconsin. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin.
Okay. No. So you have to start asking yourself, is what we are seeing right now with Eric Swalwell's complete fall from power, is this directed by the Trump administration or the FBI? Is this a white hat op? Listen to this.
More stuff is going to be dropping in the next 24 hours. And then also potentially the individual that recorded that video in that hotel room, Jesse, was a female and she was underage.
Oh, just so the audience is aware, there's a video that's circulating. Fox hasn't confirmed it yet. It appears to show Swalwell on a bed with maybe another guy making out with a girl. That's it. That's all we know. But if what you're saying is true, and we don't know, but if that's true, that is very, very, very bad.
Okay. So very, very bad news for Swalwell. He has officially resigned from Congress. Okay. He's pulled out of the California governor's race. which now Steve Hilton skyrockets up the Republican. California, you might actually get your state back. Okay. And let's listen to Stephen Miller here and what he's saying about it, because this is what I was saying the other day, and this is where it gets really, really important.
While we have you here, has the president said anything about Swalwell? I don't know if he said anything. Has he been following that?
Why, has he had a bad week, Jesse? I haven't been watching.
You might be busy with bigger matters of war and peace.
Couldn't have happened to a better person. But look, here's the most important thing if we have 10 seconds on this, and I'm sure you would agree with this. The most important part about this story, and look, Swalwell is a scumbag. He is a terrible person, the worst of the worst, the lowest of the low, the most dishonest of the most dishonest. But the real story here is how the Democrat Party controls its members through blackmail. It's got a blackmail file on all of its politicians, and it uses them to leverage and control them until it's time to release it. That is how sick and twisted the Democrat Party is. That's the next thread we've got to pull out here, Jesse.
All right.
He just said, Steve Miller is indicating that it was the Democrats that took down Eric Swalwell. They took down their own guy. But hold on a second. Go back a week and a half ago when Pam Bondi is fired by Donald Trump, and there's rumors indicating that she released certain classified information about to Eric Swalwell about his case, that she was friends with Eric Swalwell. Could the Democrats have taken that as an indication that maybe Swalwell was working with the DOJ? And so they saw that as a potential threat and release this information on him to remove him from the California governor's race? Are they trying to pave the way for Adam Shifty Schiff to run for governor? Here's the thing, is Schiff knows that his time is coming. This summer, August, is going to be very, very bad for Adam Schiff. So when we start to see this, was this a white hat op or was this a Democrat op? I think they were one and the same. What I mean by that is that I think that the information, the white hats had the information. The good guys had the information, and they were going to release it. And so the Democrats utilize it as a power play. At least that's what I'm thinking. Now, Kash Patel, listen to what he says right here. Because this is how DC politics operates. Eric Swalwell has maintained that none of the allegations against him are true, and now that he's resigned, we would welcome him to sit down with the FBI and share any information he has. We also encourage and welcome any person with relevant information to any of these matters to speak to us. The door is open to all. When does a bird sing? They just burned Swalwell. So, Laura Ingraham asked the question, the right question. Swalwell's been in Congress for a long time. What did he have?
Perverts like him, we've got to get to the core of who's allowing this to take place.
Yeah, does he have a Ghislaine Maxwell? Was there someone as a go-between? Yeah, I mean, so it's everyone just think about that for a moment. We don't know, but 13 years being able to maneuver like this, it's very, very bizarre. And it does not look good. And he's the kind of person, if he's going down, he's going to take a lot of people down with him. That's my experience in court dealing with these types of people. And that's what I imagine is.
Oh, yes, he is. Now, isn't that interesting? For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how this summer, primary season, is when it's all going to start to kick off. That you're going to start seeing congressmen and senators resigning and no longer seeking re-election. Why? Because of what is about to happen. Full disclosure, that is coming out. So Kash Patel saying, Swalwell, come sit down, have a conversation with us. Swalwell, obviously she's asking, did he have a Ghislaine Maxwell himself? Did he have an intermediary, a madam that he utilized to traffic these girls? Yes, he did. But then does he also, being in Congress for 13 years, did he also have his own black book of dirt on these people? Yes, he does. It's Eric Swalwell who was screwing a Chinese spy and got away with it. You don't have that term in Congress with those accusations against you and then try to run for governor of California without having information on other people. And I think we're about to see that come out. Now, here's another angle. You had Stephen Miller calling this a hit job by the Democrats on Eric Swalwell. I think that's a setup. I think that this was the white hats who did this. Everybody in the Democrat Party are wondering who did it in the Democrat Party, who's trying to make a power play, but it's going to throw their whole party into disarray. And people are going to start ratting out other people, and more information is going to start coming out about all of these people. We also have Representative Tony Gonzalez, no longer a member of Congress.
Anticipating that more members would either be expelled or forced to resign. Obviously, there's probably information that because of investigative reasons you can't divulge, but can you give us an estimation, a number of how many you think may be soon to depart?
Probably 2, and it'll probably happen the week of the 21st. Sheila McCormick has been found, I guess, guilty on 25 different violations, stealing of $5 million in FEMA funds. I don't think the Democrats are going to vote to protect her. In fact, I know they won't. The votes are there. And there's another member of Congress that the Speaker is looking into the congressional ethics report on that I'm finding is pretty alarming. And so I think there's more to come on that. But again, I won't be leading any of those expulsions.
Sure.
Those are being led by other members of Congress.
Oh, More members of Congress are going to take the fall next week, 2 more. And I bet by summertime, it's going to be a lot more. That number is going to be a lot higher. In other words, what is the best way to ensure that the midterms are safe and secure? You begin dismantling the corrupt infrastructure of the Democrats, who the corruption has been supporting and sponsoring. You get them and force them to resign prior to the election. Former Congressman George Santos, who was a victim of the Democrats taking him down, reveals that the House of Representatives had to shut down the high school page program because so many congressmen were sexually abusing young children. Oh, wondering if that's going to come out. Now, some interesting comments coming from J.D. Vance on these topics. Listen to what J.D. Vance says here. Everybody has sound. A few people don't have sound. Sound is fine. Weird. Don't know what happened there. That's only on YouTube. Nowhere else. All the other channels had sound. Sorry about that, guys. That wasn't me here. Let me know if you have sound on this one.
I'm probably more obsessed with this than most officials, okay? Probably more obsessed with this than most people even in this room, is when you see somebody who says something in an email that suggests, there's one email I read, and it's been a little while ago, but it was talking about, one person sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, oh, there were some really nice, pizzas and grape sodas or something like that. And I remember it sounded like the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, but here it was in an email from a guy. And my reaction to that was, we should absolutely investigate that person, okay? And, you remind me, I'm going to follow up on that to see whether we've investigated that person, because we should. We absolutely should. When you see evidence of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, regardless of whether you're powerful or not, in fact, you should probably investigate it more if you're a powerful person, right? I don't want powerful people,
Okay. And J.D. Vance is heading up the task force on corruption. So, and you remember, go back to what John Solomon was saying yesterday, that Todd Blanche is coming in. This guy understands these levels of corruption. I don't know if I believe that Todd Blanche is a good guy, but we will see. But I trust J.D. Vance. I do. So when you say no sound, are you talking about the video or are you talking about me? So Deborah and everybody on YouTube that has no sound, it must have. So what happens is when you're on YouTube is sometimes a video that you're playing will spark a copyright. It might not be an actual copyright, but the AI will mute out the volume of it. So if that happens, you got to close it out and then reopen it. So try that. All right. So we have this idea here that J.D. Vance is heading up this task force of corruption and uprooting New York and Illinois and Minnesota and California, Colorado, all of this. We're finding out that various different congressmen from these states are beyond corrupt. You have Republican from Texas, Gonzalez. You have Schwabwell from California. And there's going to be more coming over the course of the next few weeks. What a great precedent to set for them than the first indictment. Are we about to see the first arrest, the first real indictment? I believe we are. So, got some rumblings today from some of my friends that former CIA Director John Brennan will be indicted by the end of the week or early next week from investigations by a Florida grand jury. That Brennan will be arrested here probably in the next 7 days. Now, think about that. Remember, in all of this, we talked about Panic in D.C., Guardians of the Pedophiles, and FISA-Gate. And all of it is starting to coalesce together. Brennan would be that first arrest, which is showing congressmen, senators, Obama administration officials that they are not elite, that they are not untouchable. And see, think about this in the context of game theory and psychological warfare. Imagine you're a congressman who probably did some bad things and no people have dirt on you. And you got dirt on other people, like Swalwell. You just watch what happened with Swalwell. You watch what happened with Tony Gonzalez. Everybody in the Democrat Party said, was it you? Was it you? I don't know who did this. Was it you? This is why I think it was a Whitehead operation. They're all wondering who did this and who's the benefit from the power. Then John Brennan is indicted and arrested. And they realize that the Trump administration is coming after them, that they are not untouchable, that their status means nothing to justice and the law. In the aspect of game theory, what happens next? They sing like a bird. They call in Cash Patel and say, hey, and Cash Patel, hey, if anybody wants to come sit down with us, doors open. They sit down with Cash Patel. They start trying to get deals because they know if John Brennan is going down, the dominoes are only going to fall from there because they all know what happened. And if they are integrated in that criminality at all, at any level, they're going to start singing like a bird because they don't want to be next. They don't want to lose their power and control. This is where it begins. This is the storm that we're actually talking about. And what else do you have? You have the discussions about the impeachment attempt of Donald Trump, Eric Ciaramella, Brennan, CIA operative who pretended to be a whistleblower and conspired with Adam Schiff and Fat Vindman twins to impeach President Trump over Ukraine, heavily involved in the USD's $1 billion loan deal to Ukraine by Obama-Biden administration. We know that with Victoria Nuland. That Eric Ciaramella and John Brennan were the ones that funded the color revolution in 2014 in Ukraine, right? Eric Ciaramella obviously being named over the last few days with new declassified documents, and that they're looking at criminal prosecution against what happened to Trump during that impeachment hearings because protocols, the law were not followed. Adam Schiff is going to go down for this and probably will get indicted, and these people know it. Inside Congress, they know that, look, these are criminal acts. And Schiff's probably like, well, they're not going to arrest me. And then they take down John Brennan. Ooh. Now he knows that he's next. Now that other ones involved know they are next. And listen to what Ezra Cohen-Watnick said today. Wise words here. He says, imagine if there was a language learning model, AI, trained on the millions of pages of classified and unclassified Russiagate and Ukraine impeachment hoax documents. Many new connections would be surfaced that even the most determined researchers and analysts haven't discovered yet. Now, why is that important? Because that kind of goes back to what we've talked about with Q in the first place. That what Q was a defense-grade artificial intelligence, of which, when they preserved all these documents and began putting it in there, and began to construct the narrative in the playbook and the things that happened next and how to counteract that. And I think Ezra is even hinting towards that right there. All right. Quick transition. We are going back into Iran talk, but I do believe that shit is about to hit the proverbial fan in Washington, D.C., that we have panic in D.C. that is happening right now. Swalwell being taken down is a big one. McCormick and Haskell, these are small fish. When you start taking down Swalwell, when you start taking down Adam Schiff, when John Brennan gets indicted, this is where that real panic and fear begin to build within Washington, D.C., and people begin turning on people. Instead of factions uniting together, people begin turning on people. And like I said last night, this isn't just going to be Democrats. Republicans are going to be involved in all of this. All right. Let me see here. We got a little bit of Iran news. We have about 10 minutes left, so we have to kind of be very, very careful with our conversation here. Because, well, we got to go to DEFCON 0 here in a little bit. All right, let me get one of these up and ready. And we're going to do Emerald Med real quick, guys, and then we'll jump into the Iran segment of the show. I want to share with you about a farming family supporting this channel. 8 years ago, their brother returned from Afghanistan with significant injuries and lost his ability to function. We can't share his exact story because of FDA restrictions, but friends kept suggesting CBD, and they tried dozens of CBD products, and nothing helped. Out of frustration, they began to create their own. They started making it to help friends, family have CBD, and they knew was as clean and powerful as possible. The doctor started asking if they could carry it, and it took off. Now they speak at medical conventions and help others across the United States. While most companies have 1 to 10 compounds in CBD oil, their oil has up to 50. They have 8 things that make their products different. They make bombs, gummies, pet products, etc. They're called Emerald Med. You should check these guys out. If you get their CBD and don't notice a big difference, they'll actually provide a refund. If you want to support a business that supports our channel and free speech with marketing dollars, and if you need a source for CBD that is real, they're running a special right now because their company's anniversary. You can click the link below to try Emerald Med, 40% off today. Get extreme muscle and joint relief, get significant inflammation and circulation support, quality sleep, or even daytime calm. They're worth a try at least once. Just click the link below and use the code for 40% off up to 2 items today. And if you're on Rumble, that's where that link's going to be. It's going to be in the chat, and it'll be in the description box, and it's also on the screen with the QR code if you are on Rumble. So just so everybody knows where that is. All right. President Trump indicating that a second round of peace talks with Iran and a potential deal could take place very, very soon. Iran is reportedly considering a voluntary pause on Hormuz shipments to keep talks alive with the United States to move and reduce the risk of confrontation during the fragile ceasefire, but nothing is confirmed that the situation could shift really quickly. And really what's going on with Donald Trump's naval embargo in the Strait of Hormuz is this is multifaceted. Number one is this affects Europe, this affects UK, and this affects China. It does not affect the United States in the context of energy. But it also tests Iran's resolve. Who's in charge in Iran? Is it IRGC hardliners, or is it the civilian component of the government? Does the civilian components of the government have control over the IRGC? So Trump implemented a blockade of the Straits of Hormuz. They're allowing few different pieces of traffic to go through, not much. But what you're seeing is that the IRGC is not acting on it. That the civilian government is saying that, hey, we think we're going to just let this happen. We have alternative methods that we can use. And that's actually a very, very good thing because it shows that the IRGC hardliners would have tried to kamikaze drone U.S. Navy warships immediately. That's not happening. So this is a good indication. This is why Trump is coming back to the table saying talks will probably resume and a deal will be likely. Because Trump is willing to give them a very, very good deal, but he wants to ensure that he has their trust and respect and that the right people are in the positions of power. He told Maria Bartiromo today that the war is close to over. Now, China has warned the United States that if they try to stop Chinese ships, there's going to be problems. So far, there was indications earlier that Chinese ships tried to go through and they were stopped by the United States Navy. That's not true. I haven't seen any confirmation on that. Central Command provided an update after 24 hours of the blockade. 0 ships from the Iranian ports have made it through. 6 voluntary turned around. 10,000 plus U.S. service members are involved. 100 plus aircraft, 12 warships. Now, it was reported that 25 ships went through, but they didn't necessarily come from Iranian ports. So keep that in mind. 2 hours. That's how long it took Israel and Lebanon to agree on something for the first time in decades. Israeli's ambassador after the excuse me, hold on. Israeli's ambassador after the delegation said, "We agree with the Lebanese side on liberating it from Iranian occupation forces, namely Hezbollah," which is interesting. So right afterwards, Marco Rubio met with Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Adalati at the State Department. Earlier, Rubio hosted a meeting between Israel and Lebanese envoys in Washington, saying he hoped the two countries could work on a framework for peace in the process. Now, the problem with Israel going into Lebanon, we want to think that it's biblical. We want to think it's greater Israel. It's completely financial. It's always going to be financial in this context. And this is why you see massive pushback from other Middle Eastern countries that have investments within Lebanon, including China, Turkey, Egypt. And so what's happening right now is Israel is basically being threatened from around the world. Turkish President Erdogan threatened military action against Israel yesterday. So what else? Xi calls for closer ties with Spain in the face of global chaos. 3 days ago, Benjamin Netanyahu declared Spain the enemy of Israel. So Israel declared Spain an enemy. China is building closer relationships with them. Lebanon is a place that China has invested billions of dollars. Israel has invaded Lebanon. Do you see the pattern beginning to emerge? Then Italy, Italian Prime Minister Meloni announced a suspension of military cooperation and defense agreements with Israel. So now you have Italy, Spain, China, Turkey, Egypt, all pissed off at Israel over Lebanon. So what's going on there? That's the whole framework that we've talked about multiple different times with Israel, is that they are surrounded by people that they keep on pissing off. They're going to get themselves into a war that the United States can't save them from. And I truly do believe that that's where this is potentially headed. I think that Turkey is going to make a move on Israel, or China will make a move on Israel, and that the United States is going to have to stay completely out of it. And that's going to be very, very bad for Netanyahu, and potentially will be his demise. Trump meets with the U.S. ambassador to China tomorrow. And this is probably to negotiate various different strategies pertaining to Iranian oil. And so, remember I told you earlier in the show, right now it's what is Europe going to do? What is China going to do? Trump tomorrow is meeting with the U.S. ambassador to China. And this is to find out what's China wanting to do. Because here's the thing, the open and free strait, like Trump is getting about, actually benefits China in the long run, but it hurts them in the short term. So this will be really, really interesting to see what happens next. I'm not even close to done with the show, but we got to go. We got to go to DEFCON 0. And if you guys have not watched DEFCON 0 or checked it out, I urge you to go on over to Badlands Media, check it out over there. It'll be starting in approximately 15 minutes. And what I want to do is I need to go. Oh, that's the wrong one. It'll be starting in about 15 minutes. I need to go into here and do this real quick. And we're going to head over to Badlands Media, guys. And then for anybody out there that is on Rumble, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you over there with a raid. And okay, that's ready to go. And so, yep, I had a few more stories. We're going to have to cover them tomorrow. I apologize for not getting to them. But guys, it's going to be bangers for the next few weeks. This is going to be nonstop. So buckle up. Next week, DEFCON 0. there is a very, very important interview that is going to happen. You guys will be like, holy shit, how did you get him? Yeah. That'll be next week on DEFCON 0. Make sure that you're tuning into that next week as well. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, supporting, and following. I hope to see many of you guys over at DEFCON 0. Everybody else, I will see you tomorrow. And much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. We'll see ya.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns to silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Voice still calls, we the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a life's prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone, patriots rise. We are one, land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"